Dudes of Reddit, when was the last time you cried? 2 years ago, my sil had twins. One of them had a congenital heart defect, HLHS. Her family moved in with my wife and I because we live in a city with a great hospital. Over the next 2 months we watched him slowly die. I was one of his pallbearers and wept uncontrollably all through the funeral. After the funeral, my wife and I sat in our empty house and cried some more. I'm so sorry to hear about that. I can't even imagine what that would be like to go through. I hope you and your family are getting through it alright. Sending some love from a stranger. Sometime last week, I had ankle surgery at the beginning of the week and the lady I'm dating is taking absolute freaking care of me. Nerve block wore off and I was absolutely dying after scooting upstairs and I just laid there a moment in the kitchen with her. After she helped me get up, I proceeded to explain to her how I've never been treated in such a way by someone outside of my family the way she's been treating and taking care of me. My ex of 6 years would have just bitched the entire time, so it was, and has been, a bit overwhelming being treated this way. She's a freaking keeper. Dude, I hope for a speedy recovery, and it sounds like you have one bad butt girl on your side. When I had to put my dog down a few months ago, he was the best. Sorry for the loss. My dog's 11 and just had surgery which turned into an infection. I was so dang close. When I submitted my letter of resignation in June, my old boss was a real one who looked out for me personally and professionally, and I'm not a huge fan of change. I definitely got emotional going through the past 4 years. Change scares me and the realization that I was moving on got to me. Having a boss that cares makes such a huge impact in your life. Hope the change was a good one. Thanks for the share. Friday, my grandpa died the day before and I often have trouble processing death immediately, so it usually takes 12 to 24 hours for it to really hit me. Sorry for your loss, man. I'm typically the same way. You don't want to believe it happened, then it all hits you. Hope you're doing okay. A couple hours ago, not a big one, just welling up. A convo card at a Christmas party asked what kind of charity would I start and who for. Something for abused kids. What bothered me though was the thought that so many suffer in silence and fear and may never benefit. I'm a therapist and I hear too many of those stories. Speaking of which, watched Good Will Hunting with my wife last weekend. Haven't seen it in years. Tears start streaming at the scene where Robin Williams just sits in silence. Then the scene approaches where Will breaks down in therapy and I know what's coming. I had to leave the room and ended up in a ball on the floor. Dang, you're killing me, Smalls. I could go for a cry like that. I don't know what you've heard as a therapist, but one sure you've been through the ringer. I'm legit waiting to be hunkered down on the floor with those kinda emotions because it's important to let it all out. Earlier tonight, my wife and I made love, then sat in bed discussing our early dating, how we knew in about 4 months of meeting that we were headed for marriage, but she had some things to work through first. I told her I was glad I was in the right space to be patient and understanding then, otherwise I might have missed out on an incredible woman. Then I cried and then she cried. She commented on how she couldn't recall the last time I cried. It's been a wonderful 18 years. Frick, this is so beautiful. I hope everyone in this comment section have what you and your partner have and that we all never let it go and stay strong just like you guys did. Today, when I heard the words "I love you but I'm no longer in love with you," 3.5 years down the drain and an engagement ring to get a refund on. That sounds really tough to deal with. I'm sorry to hear, friend. I hope you're able to find the support you need as you move forward. Legit a few hours ago. Story time. I met an amazing girl last summer while hiking last summer. Like perfect. We became best friends almost instantly, but she told me that she wasn't ready for a relationship at the time and would rather be friends. Plus she lived on the other side of the country, so logically it made sense. Plus she was 2.5 years older than me and in a different stage in life. I was heartbroken but continued on and built that friendship. Later in the summer we met a guy who fit in with our hiking group. He is amazing. Don't get me wrong. Tonight I called this girl to catch up on life and it turns out she started dating that guy in secret last summer while we were hiking. She pretty much told me that she doesn't want to maintain our friendship anymore because she was torn. That crushed me. I spent all summer suppressing my feelings for her and invested a huge amount of energy to build what I thought was a lasting friendship, something that is rare for me. All those feelings suddenly came back when we got off the phone and I couldn't contain it. So yeah, that's my story of how I still can't get over people even when I let down my trust barriers and allow friendships, and how a guy can easily cry. I'm about to be bawling soon, because I'm at the hospital right now as my grandpa had cardiac arrest twice in the last 2 days. His kidneys are failing and now he is going fast. Yesterday, good buddy of mine got pee drunk and sent me a message about how we're brothers for life, and he will always be by my side. Crap like that always gets me. Sounds like you have a homie in your corner. Found out on Wednesday last week my dad has skin cancer, but thankfully it's not melanoma and cannot spread. When the growth is removed he will be clear. I spent all day Wednesday crying. I live in Vancouver. My dad is home in Ireland. I know it's not a dangerous kind, but cancer is still cancer. I just wanted to give him a hug. Filling up now just typing this. I'm sorry to hear about the scare, friend. My mother has had cancer, and it was surreal to think I may not see her someday because of it. She's fortunately fine, but in the interim, even waiting for the doctor's apt, it was difficult. I wish you the best. I haven't been able to cry for 12 years. There is a problem with my face. I've felt depressed weepy, but no tears flow. It is torture. Can't imagine how that feels for so long. I've had that where I wanted to cry yet I couldn't, but finally crying is such a release. I cried 3 times last week alone. During the beginning stages of COVID, my mental health went to complete crap. Literally went through a phase where I cried daily. Started seeing a therapist and things got better. Last week was my first business trip away from my comfort zone. Man, I'm sorry you've had a rough time. I wish I could say something inspirational to help you out. All I can say is I'm glad you took the initiative to seek help and you're on your way to become better. Hope the business trip goes well. You have people rooting for you and I'm one of them. Marley and Me, City of Angels. I never cry about real life, but put a sad movie on and turn on the waterworks, especially if I've had a few drinks. I've started keeping a running list. The strangest one is the ending of Rogue One. Had been drinking with my friends before we went to see it opening night. All-time worst one was either the ending of Hamilton or the epilogue of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Today, it's hard raising 3 children on a single parent income, along with getting a notice to vacate our rental. It just seems like it's impossible to stay on top. I'm sorry to hear, friend. That sounds really difficult and overwhelming. I won't pretend to know what it's like to be in your situation, but I hope you're able to find the support you need to keep life stable for yourself. I cry frequently. I still miss my late wife quite a lot. It's been 18 years. I really loved her. I have a whole new life now and a happy one, but I won't ever really get past my Michelle. I made a mistake and I made my mother cry. I felt terrible about it and bought flowers and muffins to make up for it, and we both cried together when I asked for forgiveness. We all make mistakes. At least you realized you made one. Respect to you for realizing. Today, dealing with a lot of crap. Been out of work for 8+ years with a back injury, financial stress. Feel like a failure even though the injury isn't my fault. In pain every day. Being stuck like that, depression set in pretty fast. Wife divorced me about a year after my injury. She didn't want to be with someone who couldn't be active and go on adventures. Hard to meet new women when you can't go out and socialize. So loneliness is hard. Not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I did get lucky and I met this amazing woman. She's a great person and great friend, but I want more. She checks every box. Never thought I would meet someone so amazing. Bad luck strikes again though because she's married. So my heart hurts from that. Life sucks, then you die, I guess. There's a ton of other crap, but this is long enough. When I watched We Were Soldiers on Memorial Day past, when Mrs. Moore comes back to her home after delivering the first telegram and sees the pile left at her door, I always lose it. I'm a vet. Nothing big or important, but lost friends. And that just hits hard each time I see it. Guess I better watch these because it's been a minute for me. Found my new plans for my days off. sad movies and possibly a whiskey drink or some wine. Good for you. We should always embrace a good cry every once in a while. For me personally, La La Land makes me cry harder than any other movie. Just yesterday actually, went to my dad's grave and just cried because I missed him. He passed when I was in 9th grade, so 2 years ago, from lung cancer. And I regret not hanging out with him much because I thought he would be there forever. And seeing people with their dads kinda make me jealous as to why did God have to take my dad? IDK man. Probably last week, I was having a club meeting at my university. The club advisor commented on the gender ratio since most of the club members are women. One member made a comment saying what I am doing there and why am I part of the club, implying that I don't belong there, I presume because of my gender. Another one followed up saying that she forgets that I am part of the club. Many of the members chuckled at the comments. I felt so heartbroken, man. So excluded, like I don't matter. It's particularly difficult because I have been trying to make meaningful relationships to fight my anxiety and depression. I came home that night and I let out tears. Leave that club. They will only make you feel small further. Saturday night. Combination of realizing how long I've been single, thinking how my previous relationships ended, and that my chances are getting worse as I get older. I tried finding a website where I could send myself flowers to arrive on Valentine's Day and spent an hour trying to find one that would let me send them this early. I was hoping to forget that I did it by then. There's always time to find that someone. Hope you're doing well. Crap, I'll send flowers your way. Shoot me a message and I'll get them sent. This week, I had a dog for 6 months. He was the best thing ever. He was my best friend. He was getting big or even too big for me, so my dad, who loved the dog, had to send it to a friend in a farm. I went there only once and he was really big. When he saw me, he ran the fastest I ever seen him. That was 6-8 months ago and I really miss him. When I am sad I think of him. I'm 13 and his name is Rudy. Thanks for the story, you Bendovic69. Yesterday when I watched the Michael Schumacher documentary on Netflix. First time I've ever cried from a movie TV show. I better watch it. Glad you got some emotions out. Just a few days ago, my dad died about 3 years ago, and my mom died about 4 months ago. 3 things happened in quick succession a few days ago that pushed me over the edge. First, we put up our Christmas tree. It is a tree I inherited, along with some of the ornament that were my parents'. Most went to my siblings. Second was that the check for my portion of the sale of my parents' house came in the mail. Surprisingly, that brought profound sadness. Then I learned that the new family moved into my parents' house, closing that chapter of my life forever. That's when I lost it. Body heaving sobs. This time of year is going to be rough. We always had great Christmases together, and it's real hard to get into it with them gone. A few weeks ago, when I came to the realization that I'd been suffering mentally from holding in all the pain and emotional trauma for the better part of a decade, and even some from before that too. I won't get into it, but I will say that it started with a couple of tears, and my whole body shaking and feeling numb. Then I just completely broke down, but it was still silent. Guys, learn to release some emotion, please. You don't want to end up losing your sanity and sense of empathy. You also don't want to break down and feel everything pouring out of you all at once. It's a terrible, helpless feeling. A week ago when I watched Lord of the Rings, for 12 hours, I cried so much my face burned. Girlfriend probably thinks I'm an idiot, but whatever. There's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. Last night, it hit me again that this pandemic really crushed me. I'm 20 and started uni 2 weeks before lockdown started. I didn't live on campus, so I didn't make any friends. I'm starting my 3rd year in a few months. I've gotten a lot better after basically being crazy for a year or so, but some things are still really hard, and socializing is one of them. It makes me sad that I can't really connect to people anymore or be myself. Last night was pretty dire and I just couldn't stop weeping. Curled up with my cat, which definitely improved things. Love you lads. Go to therapy and whatnot. In front of other people, I genuinely don't remember. By myself in my bedroom, back in October, I randomly smacked myself with the thought that there's gonna be a day I see all my friends for the last time. today. This morning I found my roommate lifeless in bed, called 112 Dutch, and started reanimation. It didn't help. Paramedics and officers on scene couldn't do anything either and declared her deceased. She died in her sleep of an epileptic seizure. Even before I started reanimation I knew the outcome already. Her body was discolored, purplish, and I saw that her stomach was slightly bloated. This happened about 3 hours ago, so I'm still in disbelief. Feels weird writing it, but 20 years ago when I was kicked out of my house, I was a homeless kid and this family took me in. They had this large classical music collection and I remember putting on a Mozart album and something about it just made me bawl uncontrollably. Like 6 years ago when I learned that some freshman I ran cross country with I was assigned to run with him, so I was teaching and we got to know each other through the 10-mile runs, and one day I heard that he ended his life and that broke me cause I felt so useless. Since then nothing had really made me cry, not my marriage, not my divorce, not my boot camp graduation. I get close sometimes but I can stop it pretty well at this stage in life. I believe I just learned to shut down that emotion. I'm aware of how bad that is but I just don't have time to cry about my life. I had to put my dog down and I took him alone. Wife stayed home with our son. First time I cried in years, and it wasn't until I was walking out of the room knowing he wasn't coming back with me. I still won't talk about it with anyone in real life. I had to resuscitate my grandmother a couple months ago after she had a seizure and stopped breathing. The most stressful situation I've ever been in, trying to perform CPR while managing my kids. Couldn't really cry after the ambulance came and got her since I was alone with my kids at the time. Just got stuck with that mentality of gotta keep it together for them, and that led me to just repress those feelings. After her hospital stay she just wasn't the same person and had fallen into a deep depression that eventually led to her having to move to some kind of mental ward, and I just cried after she left, realizing that my grandmother that I've always had to bullcrap with or cook with was probably gone forever. This Thanksgiving sucked without having her in the kitchen with me, and I'm sure Christmas will be the same. Just before the pandemic started, my mom took her own life. Before then I rarely cried. Since then, a lot. And I get teary-eyed over so much crap now. Good and bad. I never fully understood the impact suicide has on a person and an entire family. Just love everyone as hard as you frickin' can. I wept pretty hard over my best friend sent me a text after she got out of rehab which basically said she wishes she never met me and hopes to never see me again. It was so unexpected. We spent every day together for the last 2 years. She's the most beautiful woman I've ever known. I wish I could know why, but have accepted I probably won't ever get answers. Probably a month or so ago, we had to put one of our dogs to sleep this spring. She had terminal cancer. We bought her a little more time after the diagnosis and had a few good months. But one morning, we knew she'd taken that last turn for the worse. So rather than drag things out, we made the hard call. I cried. Like fully, ugly cried. Most of that morning, I cried while we held her and petted her as she closed her eyes for the last time. I cried many times over the next few days, then a little less frequently as days turned to weeks, then less as weeks turned to months. And I still tear up or even cry, remembering and missing her. I used to be hella suicidal. I knew myself well enough to give my guns to a friend, and then a few weeks passed by and I felt better and took them back, but I still had this general feeling of wanting a beating or to just come down and take me out of my misery. Then one day I watched my daughter, a toddler, get picked up by her mom after we had a great time together, and I realized I wanted to see how she ended up in 50 years or so. And that took my suicidal thoughts away. I called someone when she left and cried about it, and it was the first breath of air I had after what felt like drowning for a decade. I sometimes get flashes of suicidal ideations, but for the most part I'm good and I actually feel like I have something to live for in both her and myself. Coaching a soccer team and we had a tournament yesterday. In the semi-finals my girls were down 0-1, but we kept pushing and pushing, and a girl I've coached a few times over the last 5 years scored with about 10 minutes left. Too many emotions to hold back. Unfortunately we lost in penalties, but that's soccer. Before that, 2 weeks ago as I drove home after my master's comprehensive exams. Don't know the results yet, but I was so happy to be done. 2 days ago, Sad at the state of my life. All the potential I believe I had in that seems no longer accessible. Feeling trapped behind glass like the pauper watching the rich fat cats eat Christmas dinner inside the warm dining room. But I don't get to eat any. I'm alone out in the cold behind a pane of glass, hungry and watching others have the experiences I want. I get to see but never have. What really gets me is thinking that I'll let down my younger child self, the kid who had lots of options and advantages that weren't yet wasted. Honestly, I tear up when I see pictures of me as a kid thinking how much I've let him down knowing the life he will grow up into. I wish I did better for him. Same. It's the worst feeling. All that potential lost and I don't even wanna try anymore. On Sunday, I was watching a video on Reddit about an adopted girl who told the story of how she remembered the day she was adopted. When she said, "My heart fell in love with you," I just teared up. I also have a daughter who I don't see as often as I'd like, so I'm extra sensitive about these things. 2 nights ago, my new lady friend and I were having our third intimate minute-hours long conversation. This looks like the real deal and very promising. In our first 24 hours together, we had literally spent over 15 to 16 in conversation. We each shared a tragedy involving a child. She lost one, I had one that on her 6th suicide attempt blinded herself for life and damaged her brain permanently, and we simply held each other and cried. Yesterday, I crashed my barely 2-month-old car when it was snowing. Flipped upside down. Damaged roof, wheels, windshield. The cost of repair would be more than buying a new car. Luckily, nothing happened to me. Not a scratch. It was my first car and I will love it to death. Well, it wasn't yesterday because I'm crying again. I love you and you will stay in my heart forever. Just this morning, I had this crazy coincidence that moved me to tears. I owed a debt from my friend and I didn't know if I had enough in my bank account to pay for it. It was payment for various expenses including groceries using his credit card and the total amount calculated was $482.17. I checked my bank account and voila, the amount remaining in my account is $482.17 exactly to the cents. It was like God saying to me, I got you. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.